Welcome to the foothills of the Maritime Alps. For the 6th time in 9 years, Italy is the host for FIM Flat Track's season finale. But in 2020, it's the inaugural World Championship title on the line. First-time venue, the Basalta Motor Park holds the first TT event in FIM Flat Track's short history. Moving away from the Oval is bound to shake up the order this afternoon. It's 3 weeks since the season opener in Pardubice, and what was supposed to be the last of 3 rounds this weekend is now the second of 2. A scheduled visit to Diedenbergen 7 days ago was cancelled as a result of the evolving situation of the global pandemic in Germany. So it's back to Italy, to the province of Cuneo and the town of Boves for round 2 of the 2020 FIM Flat Track World Championship. 24 riders in the field, reigning world number 3 Manuel Hagleitner missing, but otherwise the top performers from the Czech round all present. Boosting the lineup this afternoon are Ice Speedway regular Marcus Gell, who makes his FIM Flat Track debut, and Elia Bartolini, the meeting wildcard. Bartolini's inclusion means that no less than 5 riders in today's lineup have recent experience of this track that was used in the Italian Championship round just a month ago. Francesco Cecchini, the winner that day, is also the current World Championship leader after a maximum score first time out in Pardubice. The 6 times World Cup winner starts the afternoon as odds-on favourite to maintain his unbeaten run in front of a home crowd. Lasse Kurvinen looked fast in the 2 short practice sessions just a couple of hours ago this morning, and the Finn second at the season opener is the best place to unseat Cecchini at the top of the leaderboard. As you can see, the track has been beautifully prepared, with particular attention paid to smoothing the outside line of the first chicane after practice this morning, and we have glorious autumnal weather conditions here in Italy as the first ever FIM Flat Track World Championship is set to be decided. The first of 12 qualifying races here in Boves. 4 rides apiece for our 24 competitors, 2 rows of 4 in each. The top 6 in the standings will progress direct to the final to be joined by the top 2 from the last chance qualifier. So amassing heat points today will be of even greater importance than in Pardubice, where we had a wider circuit and a 12-rider final. Plenty of home interest for the socially distant spectators who've amassed either side of our vantage point on the start-finish straight. 3 Italians lining up just in Heat 1, including 2 podium finishers from both days of the Italian Championship round held here in Boves a month ago. They're also the top 2 in that series overall, Francesco Cecchini and Gianni Borgiotti. Cecchini, of course, the current World Championship leader, winner first time out in Pardubice, while Borgiotti could only manage 10th. They're joined on the grid by the all-action style of Elia Bartolini. Brilliant to watch just in practice this morning, so watch out for him here. And German number 2 Ice Speedway rider Marcus Gell, who makes his FIM Flat Track debut here this afternoon. Settling in for the opening race of the day, then a little bit of edginess off the back row, but we are now underway. Good initial jump from Nicholas Meyer. He blocks out Marcus Gell, and it's Francesco Cecchini then, the World Championship leader, who predictably hits the front. Gell now through up the inside of Nicholas Meyer into second position. Gianni Borgiotti making good progress from the second row of the grid. He's already up to 4th, sends his front wheel in on the top bend now to pass Nicholas Meyer, and he's all over the tail of Marcus Gell. Meyer goes too wide off the top turn, and Elia Bartolini now comes through into 4th position, so a much changed order just on the opening lap of heat number 1. Marcus Gell seems to be backing up the pack somewhat here, and Borgiotti will be keen to get through swiftly because he has got the attentions of the train directly behind him, most notably from Elia Bartolini, who currently sits in 4th position. Borgiotti going a little bit hard there into the top turn, couldn't gain ground on Marcus Gell, who has consolidated for now at least that second position. 3-rider fight then for second place, and directly behind a good 3-way battle going on for 5th position. At the moment it's Alejandro Rodriguez on the Suzuki who holds it, having picked off Nicholas Meyer, who seems to be going backwards after making a good initial jump from the front row. Still fighting over second position, Gell and Borgiotti. Bartolini not quite on their tail. Borgiotti goes a little bit deeper there into the bottom bend, cuts back to the inside line, moves past Gell with elbows out. So a good manoeuvre eventually from Gianni Borgiotti, who was held at bay for quite some time behind Marcus Gell. How long will it take for Elia Bartolini to find his way through on Gell? The German trying to recover that second position. Borgiotti consistently going a little bit too deep perhaps on the top turn, but on this occasion manages to gather it up in time. Bartolini now thundering down the inside of Gell, has seen the route paved forward for him by Borgiotti a lap ago, and finds it pretty straightforward to get up the inside of Marcus Gell on the bottom bend. So a good defensive ride from Marcus Gell, but he has eventually been relegated down into 4th position. We're in the latter stages of the race now, and the positions are settling down. Cecchini looks comfortable. Borgiotti has 2nd. I don't think that Bartolini's going to have time to make ground from 3rd position, and Marcus Yell is not under too great a threat from the riders behind. Still a bit of a train from 5th position down. Fine start to the meeting then for Francesco Cecchini, who takes the checkered flag. 2nd over the line, Gianni Borgiotti. Good recovery ride from him off the back row. Elia Bartolini comes home for 3rd, and then it's Marcus Yell. Good defence of his position, but couldn't hold on in the end. Alejandro Rodriguez gets the better of Nicholas Meyer, who eventually tumbles behind Tim Gregg as well, with Camel Pecca rounding out your 8 finishers in the opening race of the day. But it's an Italian 1-2-3 in the first race of the afternoon here in Boves. 2 Spanish teams take centre stage here in Heat 2. All 3 Honda Artbox riders have been drawn the same first race of the afternoon. Guillermo Cano on the 179, the highest ranked rider in the lineup here. 5th at the season opener in Pardubice, but he'd gone unbeaten during the heat stages, certainly showing his speed. The 70 of Masatoshi Omori also finished in the top 4 positions in each of his heats in the Czech Republic, but failed to impress rather in the final. And Hideyuki Akada on the number 5 is still recovering from leg fracture sustained in round 1. He's been limping around the pits on crutches. The whole team, though, trained at the famous Rocco's Ranch last weekend, so should be race fit for this afternoon. Watch out as well for the number 6 Grau Suzuki of Ferran Cardus, currently 2nd in the Spanish Supermoto Championship, so the twists and turns of the TT won't hold any fears for the man who was 6th at Flat Track's season opener. The lineup in full then: Cano, Akada, Poppenreiter and Jean-Pierre from the front row, Matthias Frey, Ferran Cardus, Masatoshi Omori and Martin Sulzbacher from row 2. Little bit of edginess off the back row, but we are now underway with Heat 2 here in Boves. The red lights have come straight on, so no great surprises. Meeting referee Giuseppe Grandi pressed into service for the first time as Sebastian Jean-Pierre goes down on the bottom bend under pressure from Ferran Cardus, so he's certainly going to be relieved when he sees that the red flags have come out. They were a little bit slower than the red lights that were straight on from the meeting referee. Riders coming straight back into position. Then it will be a full restart for heat number 2. And I suspect that we may well see our first penalties dished out here, because Ferran Cardus was a little bit edgy off at gate 2 on the back row, and Masatoshi Omori really moved forward and crept past his line before the lights went out. And it looks as though the starting marshal is receiving information from the referee and to send both Cardus and Omori back off the penalty line. Looks as though Cardus is contesting it somewhat. Obviously feels as though he was edged forward, but I think it was Cardus really who made the movement before Omori alongside him, and both riders are going to be sent back off the penalty line. So a real disadvantage here, because they've got meters to make up on the rest of the field, but also because they would have been starting alongside Matthias Frey and Martin Sulzbacher, and now they're starting behind them on effectively the 3rd row of the grid, but officially the penalty line here. So a vacant slot off gates 2 and 3 of the 2nd row. 2 riders off the penalty line. Cardus and Omori will be attempting to make progress here. Second time of asking then for heat number 2, and frantic waving from gate 2 of the front row. Hideyuki Akada doesn't get away, and again the red lights are straight on from the meeting referee. Sebastian Jean-Pierre it was who'd taken the whole shot. Guillermo Cano relegated down to 3rd position. They come through the 2nd chicane and they realise that the red flags have come out. So the riders coming to a halt, and we will go again for a 3rd time of asking with heat 2. I suspect that this time it'll be Hideyuki Akada who earns the ire of the meeting referee. Not a conventional starting infringement. Effectively, he wasn't ready to go when the lights went out because he was waving frantically at the starting marshal. Wonder whether he might have stalled it on the line, the Japanese rider. Either way, he is going to get a reprieve here. He'll get a 2nd opportunity. He won't be disqualified from the race. He'll be going off the penalty line, and a little bit of confusion as to which positions the riders have got to go off the penalty line. But it'll be Akada, who had a front row start, who'll go on the inside. Ferran Cardus and Masatoshi Omori keeping effectively their positions, gates 2 and 3, but now off the penalty line. So we go again with a much changed lineup. This time the fastest start goes to the number 93 of Jasmin Poppenreiter. Very poor start for Ferran Cardus off the penalty line. He has made up 1 position and will now start to try and claw his way back through the field. Guillermo Cano swiftly moving through on Poppenreiter on the exit of the chicane. And Yasmin now, the Austrian, going for the outside line on the top bend. Went a little bit too deep on the outside line and has been passed by three riders heading across the start-finish straight for the second time at the start of lap number 2. Frank Cardus combative from the penalty line. As I said, made a very poor jump, and the two Honda Artbox Japanese riders either side of him off that penalty line got a better getaway. But Cardus is making up for lost time now, already into third position, locking hard, having made his way past Matthias Frey for that third place. Blocks Frey somewhat, the Argentinian, coming off the top turn, and now is off in pursuit of Sebastian Jean-Pierre, and in fact makes his move with an aggressive cutback manoeuvre coming off the bottom bend. Now he's got his work cut out, though, to try and hunt down Guillermo Cano, our breakaway early race leader. Had to pick his way through on Poppenreiter, who's going backwards. Frey defending against Omori, who's got a good pickup, good acceleration coming off the top turn, and makes his way through at the start of the latest lap. So Omori will now try to hunt down Sebastian Jean-Pierre, who's an isolated third place, as Frey attempts to recover fourth. Omori a little bit out of shape off the second chicane. Frey manages to narrow the gap back down to less than a bike length, goes up to the outside line, will look for the cutback coming off the top turn. Omori, though, has it covered for the moment at least. We're 2 laps away from the finish. Omori trying to hunt down his direct quarry, Sebastian Jean-Pierre, in third position. And Frank Cardus is doing the same to Guillermo Cano out in front. It's a Spanish 1-2, but which way round will they finish? Cano under real pressure now as they head into the final lap from Ferran Cardus, who, remember, who's made his way through from the penalty line. Guillermo Cano had the pole, so Cardus showing plenty of speed. Less than a bike length now, the gap, as they come through the second chicane for the final time. Top bend for the final time. Cardus heads in really hard, but Cano resists his attentions, and it will be the 179 Honda of Guillermo Cano who wins it on one wheel. Second, the Suzuki of Ferran Cardus. Third over the line, the Kawasaki of Sebastian Jean-Pierre. Oh, and real drama back into the first turn. And it looks to me as though Sebastian Jean-Pierre must have been trying to go straight into the pit and has been collected by Masatoshi Omori. So Omori down on the circuit at the moment, some concern for him just at the first chicane. He's checked on by his teammate Guillermo Cano, of course, the winner of that one, heat number 2. So really unconventional finish to the second race of the day. And the immediate concern is for the number 70 of Masatoshi Omori after a post-race incident there. Omori thankfully back up to his feet and walking away from the scene of the incident. But not the way you want to see any race finish whatsoever, and particularly after a really good scrap there in the second race of the day. Guillermo Cano then confirmed as the winner ahead of Ferran Cardus in second place. Sebastian Jean-Pierre over the line for 5 points. Good effort from him. Masatoshi Omori, remember, coming through from the penalty line. Tough race, that one, for the Honda Artbox outfit, because although they had the race winner in Guillermo Cano, they had 2 riders coming back off the penalty line. Hideyuki Akada eventually retiring with mechanical problems, and then Masatoshi Omori going down after the race. Matthias Frey picks up 3 points. Yasmin Poppenreiter, after taking the whole shot, is relegated down to 6th position for 2. And Martin Sulzbacher collects the consolation point after Akada's lap 1 retirement.
Direi che in attesa di vedere la nostra terza manche.
Heat 3, and possibly the toughest lineup of the opening block of races. 3 of the top 4 from Pardubice at the opening round of this season coming onto track here. Lasse Kurvinen, Daniele Moschini and Kevin Coradetti, who finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively, plus Mikko Koskinen, who finished 8th in the Czech Republic. This should be a good one. Kurvinen on the 365 LK Racing Polaria KTM from the pole, looking to match his championship rival Cecchini with a first ride win, and from the same starting position. His main rivals coming from behind, so I suspect we'll see a separate fight for second here. Directly behind the Finn will be Kevin Coradetti on the number 27, part of the Italian Federation's youth programme. Reigning Italian number 3, runner-up here last month in the Italian Championship, the 17-year-old, coached by Fabrizio Vesprini, the twice winner of the FIM Flat Track Cup, in the pits to give Coradetti the benefit of his experience this afternoon. It's Lasse Kurvinen from the pole, the 99 of Hansen Schruff alongside him, the 19 of Stefano Rosso, and the 77 of Marco Silverio completing the front row. Kevin Coradetti, Jiri Kraus, Mikko Koskinen, and Daniele Moschini off the back row. We are underway. Fastest start for Hansen Schruff, who takes the whole shot. Poor start off the pole from Lasse Kurvinen, who has the inside line and manages to defend against Stefano Rosso. Rosso going backwards here, was moved out of the way by Mikko Koskinen, who's made a good start from the second row, and that created the space for Silverio to come past as well. Poor start for Kevin Coradetti, but he's now fighting back. They're 4 abreast off the top bend. Moschini in the wrong place at the wrong time and remains at the back of the group down in 7th position. So it's a group of 3 up front, then a 4-way train behind battling over 4th position. Schruff is coming under intense pressure here from the Flying Finns. Lasse Kurvinen currently in 2nd place and Mikko Koskinen in 3rd. Kurvinen almost alongside the race leader coming off the top turn. Gets a little bit too much lock and can't quite find his way through back into the first chicane, but Schruff is going to have to defend hard here, and Kurvinen has got to think about attacking and defending at the same time because he's got Koskinen for company directly behind him. Slow off the second chicane there, Lasse Kurvinen, still managing to defend that 2nd position. Coradetti now has joined the fray, and that forces Koskinen to attack. He comes through up the inside line of Kurvinen, who's now relegated down to 3rd position. So far from breaking away from the pole, as was largely anticipated, Kurvinen boxed in behind Hansen Schruff in the early laps, has allowed Koskinen to come through, and now he sets off in pursuit of the Austrian, our current race leader. Koskinen in hard into the top bend, moves Schruff out of the way and hits the front, and locks across the front of the Austrian, and now Kurvinen comes through for 2nd place as well. So Schruff loses 2 places in a matter of 2 turns, and Kurvinen has the run here on Koskinen, and Koskinen made the smallest of errors on the bottom bend, and Kurvinen was there to pounce. So from absolutely nowhere, Lasse Kurvinen has gone from 3rd to 1st, and here comes Coradetti sending the front wheel in up the inside of Hansen Schruff, and Schruff holds firm this time. So Coradetti remains in 4th position as we head into the final lap. It's Kurvinen who now leads. He's consolidated that top spot. Koskinen doesn't have the answer. Will have to settle for 2nd place. And 3rd is going to go the way of Hansen Schruff. That's a really strong first ride from the Austrian. He's under pressure late on from Coradetti, but manages to hold on. It's the 7 race points going the way of Lasse Kurvinen then, but he certainly did it the hard way, coming through after losing ground in the early stages. It was Hansen Schruff who took the whole shot. He defended the race lead for as many laps as he could, eventually muscled aside by Mikko Koskinen, who did a great job from the back row to find his way through to lead. Just made the smallest of mistakes coming off the bottom bend, and Lasse Kurvinen combative with the elbows out, coming through to take the checkered flag. Kurvinen from there looking comfortable for the 7 race points. It's a finish 1-2 with Mikko Koskinen in 2nd for 6. Hansen Schruff will be pleased enough with 5 points scored there. Kevin Coradetti, best of the rest, gets 4, despite a slow start from him. Marcelo Silverio collects 3, with Moschini, Rosso and Kraus rounding out the finishers in heat number 3. 3 of the top 5 from Pardubice are our current meeting leaders here in Boves. Entertaining start to the action, and so far so good for Francesco Cecchini and Lasse Kurvinen. Guillermo Cano holding off the attentions of Frank Ardus to win his opening ride as well. Bad start in particular for Daniele Moschini with just 2, as the start position draw evens itself out. He'll be optimistic of his chances later in the afternoon. On now then to the 2nd block of races, where our 4th different heat winner is guaranteed here in Boves. Frank Ardus was the best performer of these 8 riders first time out with 6 points, and he'll now be the favourite from an otherwise low-scoring front row. Yuri Kraus, Martin Sulzbacher and Daniele Moschini scored just 3 points between them in their first outings. An important race for Hideyuki Akada, this one as well. He hit mechanical problems on the opening lap of Heat 2, and his chances of going direct to the final already look slim to none. It's going to be a tough afternoon from here on in for him. It's Kraus off the inside, alongside Sulzbacher, Cardus and Moschini from the front row. Silverio, Schruff, Jean-Pierre and Okada completing row 2. Pre-race favourite for Cardus, the last rider on to track, the first Spanish Championship winner back in 2016. Since made appearances in the AFT singles in each of the last 3 seasons. This is his debut FIM flat track campaign. Certainly looked very quick in his opening ride, cutting through from the penalty line. Cardus then pats the favourite from the front row here. Gate number 3 on the number 6, Grau Racing Suzuki. We are underway. It's a very level break from the 4 riders on the front row, but it's Cardus most determined into the opening chicane, and he hits the front. 2nd place early on for Yuri Kraus, but they're going either side of him now. Through up the inside line comes the 99 of Hansen Schruff. Now following him through Hideyuki Akada as well. So swiftly going backwards, Yuri Kraus from the pole up into second place. It's a good start and a much better one this time around for Daniele Moschini. Still Kraus going backwards is the focus of attentions for the moment, at least. Moschini wide there into the bottom bend. He will come under some pressure from Hansen Schruff, who had a good ride first time out, and from Hideyuki Akada, who's desperate for points after missing out on scoring from a front row grid slot first time out. Akada goes a little bit too deep though on the top turn. That sends him way back from Hansen Schruff, and still the race is going on behind for 5th position. Defending that place at the moment, it's Yuri Kraus. Then it's the 1-2-4 of Martin Sulzbacher. Sulzbacher going to the outside line here. Sebastian Jean-Pierre, who scored 5 points first time out in heat number 2, could do with adding to that tally here. He looks to the inside line. He's going to go for 2 moves in one go. He makes it up the inside of Kraus. Kraus's mid-track goes to the back now. The number 77 of Marcelo Silverio coming through and takes 2 places in 2 turns. I suspect that might have settled down our battle for 5th position. And things have certainly calmed down up at the front of the field as well. In this one, heat number 4, Ferran Cardus, the pre-race favourite, getting the drop on the rest of the field and blasting well clear. Second place is going to go the way, surely, of Daniele Moschini, who's also got a decent margin in hand. 2 rides in succession for Moschini, and vastly contrasting fortunes after coming home with just 2 points from the outside of the second row last time out in heat number 3. With a front row grid slot this time around, he's looking good for 6 race points. Cardus leading into the final lap, well clear of the rest of the field. Moschini an isolated second. Then it's Hansen Schruff who's going to bank 2 5-point scores in a row. Much better start for the Austrian than anything he could manage in part of its first time out, so the TT clearly to his liking. And the same can be said for Ferran Cardus, who takes his first race victory in FIM flat track. Newcomer to the series in 2020. Cardus, who was unable to win a race in part of it, so gets one on the board here in his second outing in Boves. Second place going to Moschini, third to Hansen Schruff. Then it's Hideyuki Akada with his first points on the board. 4 race points for him, and best of the rest behind Sebastian Jean-Pierre after making his way through on Yuri Kraus, who goes to the back. So it's Cardus then who moves on to 13 points, provisionally top of the meeting leaderboard. Hansen Schruff with his 5 points goes on to 10. Daniele Moschini with 6 moves on to 8. Likewise, Sebastian Jean-Pierre on to 8 points as well. 2 points for Martin Sulzbacher, the single point for Silverio. Yuri Kraus still yet to score. Second appearance this afternoon for Lasse Kurvinen. The Heat 3 winner had the pole in his opening outing, but must now go off the outside of the back row. There is the Finn, his direct rival Francesco Cecchini off the same start position next time out, so the head-to-head very much relevant in the standings, even if the pair don't meet until Heat 7. A strong front row will make Kurvinen's life difficult here. Elia Bartolini showed well first time out, the wildcard, better known for his Moto3 exploits. He races in the Italian Championship in 2020 and also made an appearance for the Sky Junior Team VR46 last season, scoring points on his debut. He's on the pole. Alongside him off gate 2, Alejandro Rodriguez, 3 points first time out in heat 1. Gate 3, Mikko Koskinen, 6 points to his name. Kevin Coradetti completes that strong front row. Pekka, Meyer, Rosso and Kurvinen off row number 2. Lights out and away we go. Poor start off gate 2 from Alejandro Rodriguez. It's Mikko Koskinen, runner-up in heat number 3, who gets the first turn first, pursued by Kevin Coradetti. Side by side now for 4th position as Lasse Kurvinen has made swift progress. That's 4 riders dispatched already. Side by side up at the front of the field. Koskinen made to work hard. Coradetti almost comes to a stop and goes down to 4th position. So that's another place gain now by Lasse Kurvinen, who is having things his way so far in this one, heat number 5. Still 2 riders to get past, and the next 2 will be the toughest. It's Elia Bartolini now directly in front of him in P2. Bartolini, who came home in 3rd position in the opening race of the day, looking more assured in his second outing, locks up slightly off the top bend. Still Kurvinen in pursuit, getting up on one wheel there, down the start-finish straight and into the first chicane. It's still Coradetti keeping a watching brief in 4th position. It's going to be more handy points for the Italian youngster after a 4-point score first time out in heat number 3, but not perhaps what he might have been hoping for with a front row grid slot in his second outing. Separate battle further down the order. 5th position backwards are well and truly cut adrift from our lead quartet. The race continuing for 2nd position. Bartolini pulling all sorts of shapes there around the bottom bend, and Kurvinen almost going up the back of him. As Bartolini then accelerates away, it leaves Kurvinen rather in the clutches of Coradetti, less than a bike length between them as they come around the top turn once again. Kurvinen dropping back from our top 2 is not going to be satisfied with this. particularly after making great progress on the opening couple of laps. The Finn, currently second in the championship standings, looks set to only manage third position this time around. Bartolini certainly making progress though, coming into his own as this Heat 5 goes on. He really has narrowed the gap to race leader Mikko Koskinen. We come now into the final lap, and it's the 69 of Koskinen who's got to defend against the Yamaha on the 23 of Elia Bartolini. Bartolini with the cutback here off the bottom turn. He's going to get the run through the second chicane, but it's too narrow to make a pass through there. It's up to Bartolini to send it in hard into the final turn. He's going to try for the outside line. He'll look for the switchback off the top bend for the final time, but Koskinen holds on. It's Mikko Koskinen who takes the first race victory of his season. Second place going the way of Elia Bartolini from the pole, and third to Lasse Kurvinen. That's a good recovery from the second row of the grid, but it could well have been more. He rather found his progress halted once he got onto the tail of Bartolini, who had plenty of speed. So Koskinen takes the 7, moves on to 13. Second place going the way of Bartolini, who moves on to 11. Kurvinen on to 12 for third. Kevin Coradetti with 2 fourth places in a row. Rodriguez, Rosso, Meyer and Pekka rounding out your finishers from heat number 5. The first head-to-head of 2 previous race winners here in Boves, as Guillermo Cano, who took Heat 2, lines up against the championship leader Francesco Cecchini, victorious in Heat 1. Both line up off the second row after drawing front row grid slots in their opening rides. Even the lowest scorers in this heat picked up 2 points first time out. This should prove competitive. 4 riders who met in Heat 1 and 4 from Heat 2, a pecking order just starting to develop as the riders chase the top 14 places to avoid elimination. The lineup for Heat 6 off the inside of the front row, Masatoshi Omori on the number 70 Honda, 4 points from Heat number 2. Finishing directly behind him in that race was Matthias Frey, who lines up alongside him here on the 173 Suzuki. Gate 3, the 181, Gianni Borgiotti, second place in the opener. Tim Gregg completes the front row, 2 points first time out. Second row of the grid, Yasmin Poppenreiter, 2 points to her name. Guillermo Cano, the Heat 2 winner. Marcus Yell, who put in a good opening ride. And Francesco Cecchini, the winner of the opening race of the day. A long hold for heat number 6, but we are now underway. Tim Gregg really missing the start on the outside of the front row. Combative, though, in the run through the chicane. Manages to recover third position. That's bad news for Masatoshi Omori, who's down into 4th place, really giving up the advantage of the pole. And he's about to lose another position here. His Honda Artbox teammate Guillermo Cano moving through up the inside into the top bend. Not a good start either for the number 10. Cecchini forced to work his way around the outside line on Marcus Yell here. He has eventually found his way through, but we saw how good the German was at defending last time out. And again, he is proving a nuisance here to Cecchini, who eventually does manage to find his way through. But Marcus Yell holding him back in the early stages. And suddenly, Cecchini finds that he has got a rider between himself and the 179, Guillermo Cano, who was expected to be his main rival for this one Heat 6. That's Omori, who's been dispatched in short order. Tim Gregg, though, boxing in Guillermo Cano in the fight for third position. That will allow Cecchini to get back into the race for P3. The top 2 breaking well and truly clear as Cano now finally lunges through on the inside of Tim Gregg. Gregg will hold the inside, force Cecchini to go the long way round. The Zayeta, though, powers through into 4th position. And now we've got a 4-rider battle up at the front of the field. Gianni Borgiotti it is who leads the way, comfortably ahead of Matthias Frey. Frey, though, dropping into the clutches of Cano behind, and Cecchini, who follows. Marcus Yell further back defending his 6th position, somewhat isolated now in 6th place, so I think Tim Gregg's got that P5 zone. Penultimate lap, as we see Guillermo Cano looking to the inside line on Matthias Frey. This is for 2nd position. These two are not going to get to Borgiotti, but both Cano and Cecchini, who were winners first time out, would like to add more handy points to their tally to stay towards the top of the order. Cano sending his front wheel in around the top turn. He's almost alongside Matthias Frey. 1 lap to go to try and find his way through for 2nd position, Guillermo Cano. Borgiotti, the comfortable leader. Cano ducks to the inside line. Frey responds immediately off the bottom bend. Good racing here for P2. Cano's got to watch out for Cecchini, who's pushing hard in the closing stages as well. 3-rider fight for 2nd place into the final 2 turns. Cecchini goes the long way around the outside. Cano bobbles. Cecchini gets his wheels in line first. That is very close in the run down to the line, but for 3rd position and close for 5th as well, Marcus Yell making a good recovery on the tail of Tim Gregg. So exciting stuff in the last of the round 2 heat races. It is Gianni Borgiotti who takes it, and quite comfortably as well. 7 points there move him on to 13. Second over the line, Matthias Frey. Great effort to hold off 2 round 1 race winners. Guillermo Cano just about gets the verdict over Francesco Cecchini, who after 6 consecutive race wins suffers his first defeat of the season. The halfway mark in the qualifying heats, and it's already quite clear that it's going to be very close for those top 6 places for direct transfer to the grand final. Just 3 points currently separate 1st to 8th. Frank Cardus, Mikko Koskinen and Gianni Borgiotti currently lead, each dropping a single point from second row starts in the first block of races. 3 riders on 3 points and 3 riders on 4, with the current qualification cut-off at 6. So 12 points surely will be the minimum needed from 4 rides just to make the last chance qualifier. The battle line's drawn and the track staff are making their way back into position after a brief grade ahead of the 3rd round of races here in Boves. Heat 7 next up, where our 2 championship leaders meet for the first time this afternoon. Francesco Cecchini inflicted Lasse Kurvinen's only defeats in Pardubice. This only the 3rd time they meet in 2020. Both were beaten by other riders in their second outings today. Cecchini with his worst finish of the season so far in 4th. And for Lasse Kurvinen with a second row start here, it's really important that he makes progress. The top 6 cut off just a point behind him at present. Guillermo Cano, Elia Bartolini and Hansen Schruff, the latter something of an unexpected spoiler, all very much in contention as well. So this is a strong lineup and an important race in the context of qualification. Cano goes off the pole, winner first time out, he's on 12. The 25 of Nicholas Meyer on just 2 points needs a big result from this one. Francesco Cecchini, 11 points from 2 outings for the number 10 Zayeta. Hideyuki Akada completes the front row, he just coming into position now, is on 4 points from 2 rides. Elia Bartolini after a second place last time out on 11. Hansen Schruff on 10, Lasse Kurvinen on 12 and Daniele Moschini on 8, all off the back row. Movement before the lights went out off the back row of the grid on gate number 3. Lasse Kurvinen, the race continuing for the moment, but the red lights are now on and the red flags are out. So Lasse Kurvinen may well find himself sent back to the penalty line here, because I didn't see any movement from anyone else. The Finn on the number 365, KTM, just a little bit eager, a little bit nervous perhaps as well, seeing his direct championship rival lining up directly in front of him off gate number 3 on the front row. And Kurvinen moving before the lights went out, and he will indeed be penalised, sent back off the penalty line. Lasse Kurvinen, who was due to line up off gate 3 on the second row, but will now have to go off the 3rd row, the penalty line. As you can see, a vacant slot off gate 3 on row 2. Kurvinen straight into position. He knew what he'd done. He knew why the race had been stopped. And now he's got to do it from the very back. Lasse Kurvinen with his championship rival and current series leader Cecchini on the front row. It is the number 10 who's made the start. Watch for Kurvinen trying to cut his way through. He finds the route blocked by Moschini on the outside line into the first chicane. Kurvinen going the long way round. Bartolini also attempting to make progress from the second row of the grid. Kurvinen lunging down the inside, making up 1 position on Moschini, who seems to be struggling this afternoon. Bartolini on the inside of Meyer coming through. It's the Honda rider next up, the number 5, Hideyuki Akada. 4 points last time out. He desperately needs a big result here. He's bumped out of the way by Bartolini. Can he hold the line in front of Kurvinen? Yes, he can. Kurvinen all over the back of him, though, through the second chicane. The Finn now lunging for the inside into the top bend. Akada, I think, has gone a little bit too deep there. Kurvinen squares it off nicely and threw up the inside line. So a great recovery from Lasse Kurvinen up into 4th position from the penalty line. And he's already picked off the riders who started directly in front of him, as Bartolini now launches an attack on the 179 of Guillermo Cano. Cano hasn't had the answer to Cecchini. Those two both making the fastest starts off the front row, gates 1 and 3. But it was Cecchini getting across from gate 3, across the front of Cano, boxed him in around the first chicane, and the Spaniard hasn't had the answer since. So Cano beat Cecchini last time out to move 1 point in front of the Italian in the meeting standings. He's going to lose that 1 point here, and he may even lose more if Bartolini finds a way through in the latter stages. Cano looking over his shoulder, knows he's got to go defensive. Bartolini clearly being held at bay, but Kurvinen not quite able to make the expected progress on the tail of the 2 riders directly in front of him. He is now within touching distance, an error from either of these 2, and Kurvinen will be looking to come through into the top 3, but Kurvinen for the moment restricted to 4th position. Cecchini embarking on his final lap as Cano runs very, very wide there off the top bend. Bartolini not quite close enough to capitalise. They come through the first chicane for the final time in this one, heat number 7. Bartolini looking to the outside line. He's now going to get the cutback. He'll get the run through the second chicane, but Cano has the line, and it's single file through that second chicane. Bartolini thinks better of it, holds on to third position. One final attack up the inside off the final turn. Bartolini moves Cano out of the way, and Kurvinen says, thank you very much, I'm coming through as well, up into third position. Disaster for Guillermo Cano off the final turn as he goes from second to fourth. Cecchini wins it then, his second race victory of the day. Second over the line going to Elia Bartolini, a determined effort from him. He moves on to 17 points. His score matched by Lasse Kurvinen, who also capitalises on that late move to move past Guillermo Cano, who moves on to 16 points with 4 points scored for fourth position there. Hansen Schruff with his lowest score of the day so far, 3 points from that one. He moves on to 13. Akada, Moschini and Maya rounding out the finishers there in Heat 7. Two clear favourites emerging for Heat 8. Gianni Borgiotti and Mikko Koskinen have each dropped just a single point from 2 outings so far. Both were winners in their second rides. Koskinen, who made his FIM flat track debut in front of our cameras at the finish round of the 2013 World Cup campaign with a podium in Forza. The series has certainly expanded significantly since then, but the Finn remains a front runner. 8th in Pardubice, joint top after 2 rides apiece here in Boves. Look at the lineup for Heat 8 off the inside of the front row on the number 41 Kawasaki, Sébastien Jean-Pierre, 8 points from 2 rides so far. The 184 of Kamil Pekka yet to score from 2 outings. Jasmin Poppenreiter on the number 93, 3 points from 2 rides. Gianni Borgiotti, winner last time out, 13 points from 2 outings on the number 181. The second row of the grid, Mikko Koskinen, the strongest in that lineup, on 13 points from 2 outings. Stefano Rosso, Marcelo Silverio and Marcus Yell, 6 points from 2 outings, completes the lineup. We're underway with Heat 8. Great start off the outside of the front row from Gianni Borgiotti. Very slow getaway from Kamil Pekka, who from the front row of the grid has already gone down into 7th position. Now around the outside line of Stefano Rosso, who moves through for 6th place from the back row of the grid. Frantic start for Mikko Koskinen, who's now lunging down the inside of Jasmin Poppenreiter and will come through for 2nd position within just a lap. Plenty of time now for Koskinen to go off in pursuit of Gianni Borgiotti, and the top 2 in the points coming into this race on 13 points apiece are now 1st and 2nd. Marcus Yell barging his way through up the inside of Sébastien Jean-Pierre, coming off the bottom turn and through the second chicane. So he is now released up into a challenging position, looking on the tail of Jasmin Poppenreiter. A bit of ground for these two to try and find, but no doubt Jean-Pierre will go on the tail of Yell now to try and close in on the number 93, and Stefano Rosso is sticking with them as well. A 4-rider battle for 3rd place, but they're not going to get to the top 2. Borgiotti has broken well clear. Koskinen trying to make up lost ground as he looks to make it 2 wins in 3 rides and move above Borgiotti in the standings. Great effort from Koskinen to dispatch his lesser ranked rival swiftly to give himself the best possible chance of chasing down Borgiotti in the race leading positions. Very closely bunched up behind them for 3rd. Yell looking for the inside, held back by Poppenreiter. Jean-Pierre decided to go for the outside run, but it's too far to go the long way round that bottom bend, so he settles back down to the inside line now. Yell, though, clearly being held back by Jasmin Poppenreiter at this stage of the race. This would be a great result for the number 93 if she can hold on for 5 race points. She will more than double her meeting tally on the number 93, then KTM. Jasmin Poppenreiter defending against the number 82 of Marcus Yell, and Sébastien Jean-Pierre still looking for the outside line. These 3 still closely packed together. Stefano Rosso doesn't quite have the pace to stick with them. Into the final lap now, Marcus Yell dives down the inside of Poppenreiter, moves her out of the way. Jean-Pierre comes through as well. Rosso wasn't far adrift just before the second chicane. Can he make his move going into the top bend for the final time? Side by side, Rosso makes a late lunge. Poppenreiter will have the cutback, loses her footing momentarily and won't be able to get there. Close finish to heat number 8. Great battle for 3rd position. In the end, Marcus Yell ran out of patience, barged his way down the inside of Poppenreiter, who drops from 3rd position, eventually can only claim 6th place and 2 points. Out in front, Borgiotti with a comfortable win. Koskinen didn't have the answer and left himself with a handicap coming through from the 2nd row of the grid. Best of the rest, Marcus Yell gets 3rd. Sébastien Jean-Pierre with another decent points haul, this time in heat number 8. Rosso, Poppenreiter, Silverio and Pekka rounding out the finishers in the 8th race of the day.
L'ultima manche della seconda serie, se non sbaglio.
So Gianni Borgiotti takes the lead of the meeting on 20 heat points, 1 ahead of Koskinen and 2 clear of Cecchini. Frank Ardus, with a ride in hand, has an opportunity to level things up at the top of the meeting standings here. Remember, the heats don't count towards championship points, but the highest scorers will have first choice of starting positions for the final, which could be decisive. Important race this as well for Masatoshi Omori. That retirement last time out leaves him probably needing 2 top 3 finishes just to make the LCQ. He could do with easing the burden on his back row start ahead of Heat 12 with a big haul of points here. Look at the lineup for Heat 9. Yuri Kraus, Masatoshi Omori, Martin Sulzbacher and Kevin Coradetti from the front row. Tim Gregg, Alejandro Rodriguez, Ferran Cardus and Matthias Frey off the back row. 3 Suzuki Grau riders, Linus Stern off the back row with Tim Gregg on the inside of them. Heat number 9 gets underway. Great start off gate 2 from Masatoshi Omori. That's great news for him. Kevin Coradetti, after 2 4th-place finishes, would have been eager to make the start on the outside of the front row and hit the front, but instead he's going to have to do it from behind. Coradetti off into pursuit. The 3 Suzukis fighting their way through from the back row. They're almost 3 abreast into the top turn. Charging through Matthias Frey, the Argentinian, from the outside of the back row here. At the front of their trio, it's Alejandro Rodriguez. What a great start from him. 2 5th-place finishes in his opening 2 rides. He's coming under pressure now from Ferran Cardus, who looks the inside around the bottom bend and comes through for 3rd position. So the number 6 Suzuki is at the head of that chasing pack now, with Matthias Frey 3rd in the group that they are a trio, one behind the other. Tim Gregg at the moment at the back of the field. That's bad news for him after scoring 5 points from his opening 2 outings, as Cardus from way back lunges down the inside of Masatoshi Omori, who left the door wide open into the bottom turn. And Ferran Cardus, who didn't get off to the best of starts from the 2nd row of the grid, has launched his way through like a torpedo into 2nd position and is now right on the tail of the Italian youngster Kevin Coradetti. The local crowd urging the number 27 on, but he's going to find his leg taken away from him into the bottom bend as Ferran Cardus completes a brilliant recovery ride from the 2nd row and through from almost the back of the field to hit the front. Ferran Cardus, and with laps to spare as well, on the number 6 leads the way. Kevin Coradetti in 2nd position. The field bunching up from 3rd position down. Masatoshi Omori really got caught out into this bottom bend by Ferran Cardus, leaving the door a little bit too wide open. Again, he runs wide around that bottom turn, and this time it's Alejandro Rodriguez who exploits the gap and now launching his way through Matthias Frey. And this is disastrous for Masatoshi Omori, for whom things started so strongly in heat number 9, who desperately needed a result after his retirement last time out, but has given up 3 positions, and all of them around that bottom bend. The Japanese rider on the number 70 Honda clearly struggling with that turn. The race now has settled down. We're well and truly into the final lap. Ferran Cardus exits the final turn to complete a spectacular from the back ride in heat 9. Cardus with a 2nd victory in succession. Kevin Coradetti takes 2nd place. That's much more like it for him. He's well and truly in contention for a direct transfer spot to the grand final. 3rd goes the way of Alejandro Rodriguez, his best result of the day so far, to move on to 11. 4 points for Matthias Frey. Opportunistic in the latter stages with Masatoshi Omori going backwards. That's really bad news for him. He's on just 7 points from 3 outings and up against it ahead of his final ride. 2 points going the way of Martin Sulzbacher, who moves on to 5. The single point for Tim Gregg on to 6 as he gets the better of Yuri Kraus, who's still yet to score.
Of course, naturalmente, in spagnolo.
Well, I used the word disaster for Masatoshi Omori as he tumbled from 1st to 5th in Heat 9. Those lost points drop him out of the all-important top 14 with at least 2 points to make up and a back row grid slot still to come. Daniele Moschini, 3rd at the season opener, is in the danger zone, particularly should any of Omori, Akada, Gregg or Rosso enjoy a late surge. 3 riders on 2 points or fewer already eliminated. Back at the top of the standings with Heat 10 at the line. 4 of the top 5 on the current meeting leaderboard on track for this one, and all with an opportunity to book a place in the grand final here. The top 2 finish for any of them would be enough to see them through. It's a little more straightforward for Gianni Borgiotti, who can make it with just 4 points, and Mikko Koskinen, who could do it with with 5. It's Koskinen who goes off the pole on 19 points. Stefano Rosso, Elia Bartolini and Matthias Frey completing row 1. Sebastian Jean-Pierre, Francesco Cecchini, Martin Sulzbacher and Gianni Borgiotti on row 2. We are underway with heat number 10. Great start off gate 2 from Mikko Koskinen, who claims the whole shot. Elia Bartolini settling in to second position. Looks for the outside line around the bottom bend, and Matthias Frey comes storming through. The pair touch. Bartolini relegated down to 4th position. Cecchini then capitalises to move through from the second row of the grid, already up into 3rd place. But the red lights have come on. The red lights are on, and I've noticed one of the members of track staff dragging a barrier back off the circuit onto the infield, so I suspect that a barrier had been moved onto the track, hence the reason for the stoppage. And there it is, the offending article that's been moved out of the racing line. But we will have to go again with a restaging for safety reasons. That couldn't be left on the circuit, obviously. So second time of asking with heat number 10. A calmer look at the lineup for this one. Mikko Koskinen off the inside on the number 69, 19 points so far, has an opportunity to move top of the meeting leaderboard here. Stefano Rosso on just 6, desperately needs a big result, as I said when we were taking a look at the standings. Elia Bartolini on 17, doing a great job the wildcard. Matthias Frey enjoying a good afternoon so far on 13 points in a front row grid stop still to come. He's on the outside of that front row, needs to make a good start. Sebastian Jean-Pierre, Francesco Cecchini, Martin Sulzbacher and Gianni Borgiotti, as a reminder, going off row 2. Heat number 10 for a second time. Stefano Rosso has missed it again. It's Koskinen who takes the whole shot. Again, Bartolini settling into second place. This time the number 23 covers the inside line, and Matthias Frey has got it rather wrong on the bottom bend. He's been picked off by 2 riders already. Cecchini not making a good start. He's going to have to do it the hard way. Goes into the bottom bend on the outside line to pull alongside Sebastian Jean-Pierre. Borgiotti making his move now on Rosso. Good battle going on for 3rd position down. The top 2 have broken away. Koskinen leading, Bartolini off in hot pursuit. Cecchini going the long way around the outside of Matthias Frey. Single file through the second chicane. The Argentinian holds the line. Moves to the outside for the top bend though, and Cecchini pounces, lunging for the inside, and through he comes, and in straightforward fashion as well. Next in line to have a go is Cecchini on Rosso. This is for 4th position. Cecchini builds it up with an outside line into the bottom bend. Knows that Frey isn't quite close enough to capitalise. That will give him a good slingshot through the second chicane. He's up on one wheel. He's going to dive for the inside here into the top turn and through on Stefano Rosso. So Cecchini almost trademarking that manoeuvre with a wide attack and then cutting down to the inside line into the top bend. He's now up into 4th position. Borgiotti is the next man in line. At the moment, Koskinen would certainly have done enough. Borgiotti likewise to move through. I think the top 3 certainly would be booking their places through to the grand finalists. Cecchini comes in late, very late into the top bend on Borgiotti, moves him out of the way. Borgiotti with the cutback and the inside line now, heading towards the first chicane. 2 laps to go for Borgiotti to try and recover, but it's all about Cecchini on his march forward. Oh, Borgiotti's lost it. Gianni Borgiotti would have been able to do enough there to move direct through to the grand final, but he's got it right into the bottom bend. His fellow countryman Cecchini launches a move down the inside of Koskinen. It's all changed with 2 to go. Heading into the final lap now, it's Elia Bartolini out in front. It's Cecchini in 2nd place and Koskinen in 3rd. And these 3 would all stand to move on to 24 points if things were to stay as they are. That would be enough for a direct transfer spot. Borgiotti going down is going to have to wait on the results of heats 11 and 12 to find out whether he'll make it straight through to today's grand final. It's Bartolini who wins it on one wheel. Fine ride from him to book his place in the grand final. 2nd over the line, Cecchini had to do it from the back but comes through for 2nd place, and that's enough for him. Mikko Koskinen 3rd, as I said before the race got underway. 5 points enough for him to secure safe passage to the final, and we know the identity of the first 3 of our 8 grand finalists here in Boves. Bartolini, Cecchini and Koskinen, the top 3 there in heat 10. Stefano Rosso with 4 points. Matthias Frey will be frustrated with the restart, relegated down to 5th position. Sebastian Jean-Pierre banks 2 points. Gianni Borgiotti just a single point after what could be a costly late race fall. With Gianni Borgiotti missing a golden opportunity to guarantee automatic transfer. A total of 22 points would now be enough for either Lasse Kurvinen or Guillermo Cano to move above the Italian and book their places in the grand final. Meanwhile, this is a crucial race for Daniele Moschini, runner-up around this TT circuit last month in the Italian Championship, ahead of Borgiotti and Coradetti, who he trails in the standings today. It's been a valiant campaign for Moschini, who suffered head and ankle injuries less than a week before the season opener in Pardubice, but impressed in the final and made the podium. He's out of today's top 14 at present. If he doesn't score big here, he'll be eliminated, and his hopes of the world title in 2020 would be over. Yell, Kurvinen, Silverio and Moschini, Coradetti, Cano, Meyer and Akada, the lineup for Heat 11. Underway, not a good start for Moschini. He clashes with Marcelo Silverio in the run down to turn number 1, and Moschini has gone down to 7th position from a front row grid start. Disastrous start for the Italian as Silverio defends his position aggressively against Guillermo Cano. Cano straight to the outside line into the top bend. Coradetti forcing his way through up the inside of Hideyuki Akada. Akada rather moved out of the way, and that's given Silverio an opportunity to consolidate his place. Now Moschini comes around the outside of Coradetti, who's rather gone backwards, and Kevin Coradetti, who came into this race on 14 points, is stranded down the lower order in heat number 11. Moschini now setting off in pursuit of Akada, but his rhythm's going to be interrupted here because Coradetti sends another move down the inside into the top turn, side by side between the two Italian Championship rivals. Moschini holds firm and holds position, but still only in 6th place, and Moschini with work to do here on the tail of Hideyuki Akada. Remember, this is a crucial race for Moschini, who comes into it with just 9 points. So still the fight ongoing. Leading this group, it's Silverio. Akada directly on his tail, and Moschini with Coradetti for company. Only Meyer stranded well adrift out at the back. Fight for 2nd position. Marcus Yell doing a great job as things stand, as they go side by side again for 4th place. This time Silverio is a little too conservative on the inside line. Akada almost alongside but couldn't quite get there, and that's an opportunity for Coradetti to lunge down the inside. Moschini's trying to go the long way round. Akada's got track position and the racing line. They're now going to go either side of Silverio, who locked up and got it all wrong on the top turn. That is a major opportunity for Moschini, and another position and potentially another point gained. Silverio holding back Coradetti, who doesn't look like he's going to be able to hit the high notes in this one, and Moschini's got just over a lap now to try and find his way past Akada, as Cano's still battling with Marcus Yell over 2nd place. Lasse Kurvinen is away and gone out in front. It's going to be a race victory for the Finn that will book his place in today's grand final. Cano, if he gets through on Yell, will be able to join him. The Spaniard lunges hard into the top turn. Yell with the cutback. It's going to be a drag race down to the line. Cano holds on. 2nd position enough for him to secure his place in the grand final here today. Marcus Yell with 3rd position surely will march on to the last chance qualifier. And behind Marcus Yell in 4th position, Hideyuki Akada, with Daniele Moschini relegated down to 5th position. And that's real frustration for him after a front row grid slot. He desperately needed points there to secure his place in the LCQ. He's going to have to sweat now on the results of heat number 12. Coradetti, though, behind Moschini. Silverio running well in the early stages before locking it up, getting it wrong on the top turn. It was frantic in the midfield and lower order of heat number 11. Nicholas Meyer, the only rider really out of contention, and he fails to score. Kurvinen's win moves him on to 24, tied now with Koskinen, Bartolini and Cecchini from heat number 10, while Guillermo Cano also books his place in the grand final on 22. The last of our qualifying races, Heat 12, next on track. Of the 8 riders here, only 1 can still make it through direct to the grand final. Frank Cardus needs just 2 points here. A top 3 finish would move him through as top seed. A separate scrap for the last of the available LCQ spaces. 11 points the current cut-off. Hansen Schruff needs just a point to be safe, and Alejandro Rodriguez also currently set to avoid elimination. Tim Gregg on 6 and Masatoshi Omori on 7, meanwhile, would need either a 1st or 2nd place finish here to overhaul Daniele Moschini and move through. The Italian's championship hopes could well depend on this race, where he doesn't even feature. Rodriguez, Schruff, Cardus and Gregg on row 1, Kamil Pekka, Yasmin Poppenreiter, Masatoshi Omori and Yuri Kraus on row 2 for heat number 12. Underway with a great start off gate 2 from Hansen Schruff. Cardus is going to have to do it from behind. He'll look down the inside into the bottom bin. Not for the moment at least. Cardus is held at bay. Separate scrap further back down the order. Omori coming around the outside of Yasmin Poppenreiter. Tim Gregg is next in line for attack. as Greg holds 4th position. Kardus lunging for the inside, now passes Schruff to lead it, looks over his shoulder to see if the Austrian can find a way back through down the inside into turn 1. Not so. So it's now the number 6 for Kardus who leads the way. Hansen Schruff on the number 99 KTM in 2nd position. Separate fight for 3rd, 4th and 5th places. Omori not making the type of progress he really needs to. Remember, it's a top 2 slot and nothing less that will do for the Japanese rider. At the moment, he's down in 5th position. As you can see, on the attack, up on one wheel down the start-finish straight, on the tail of Tim Gregg in the battle for 4th. Greg at the moment holding back Omori on the number 70 Honda, and that is enabling the riders in 2nd and 3rd positions, where Omori really needs to be to escape away. Greg, though, in turn not making the progress on the top 3 that he would need for transfer to the LCQ, so it looks as though Greg and Omori will both be eliminated. Schruff and Rodriguez in the positions they need to move through to the last chance qualifier, which will be the next race after a brief break for grading. Omori cutting to the inside line on Tim Gregg, who's still defending valiantly. We've seen this before from the Kawasaki man, the lone British rider in the field. Tim Gregg defending position valiantly. Omori ducks to the outside line, once again going the long way round. Again, Gregg holds firm. Resilient effort here from Tim Gregg, the Brit in 4th position, but you can see Rodriguez has escaped away up ahead in 3rd place, and the top 2 well clear. Omori again fighting to the inside still. It's single file through the 2nd chicane, and that's where Omori gets close on each lap around. Not quite close enough. The Japanese rider goes deep into the top bend this time around. I think he's got it. The long way round the outside for Masatoshi Omori, who is finally through on Tim Gregg for 4th position. But they're into the final lap, and he's not going to get to the top 2 spots. So it's Omori and Gregg who will miss out. No such problems for Ferran Kardus. Not only does he qualify direct to the grand final, he does so as top seed. 2nd place goes to Hansen Schruff. That's enough for him to move through to the LCQ. 3rd to Alejandro Rodriguez, likewise going through to the last chance qualifier. Best of the rest in that one, Masatoshi Omori, but 4 points will move him on to 11. It's not enough to knock out Daniele Moschini, who hangs on by the skin of his teeth to a place in the LCQ. Further back, close fought for the 2 race points. Poppenreiter holding on ahead of Kraus, who picks up his first point of the day. Kamil Pekka failing to score from 4 outings. But the focus up front, where Ferran Kardus books his place through direct to the grand final, and does so with just a single drop point from 4 outings to move through with first gate choice for the grand final here today. 2 Spaniards, 2 Italians and 2 Finns through direct to the grand final. Gianni Borgiotti losing out after a 4th ride fall that has cost him dearly. Further back, our 2 Japanese representatives, Omori and Akada, miss out on a place in the LCQ by slender margins. Retirements punished severely in World Championship flat track. On to the last chance qualifier then, an 8-rider repechage from which only the top 2 will make it to the grand final. Positions 3 to 8 will score 12 to 7 championship points, so every place here counts towards the season's final rankings. But it's a crucial race in particular for Kevin Coradetti and Daniele Moschini, both contenders for the championship podium after making the top 4 in Pardubice, but their hopes of a medal would be ended here if they can't make it through into the final 8. A look at the lineup for the last chance qualifier. Off the pole, it's Gianni Borgiotti on the 181, the pre-race favourite, the Heat 6 and Heat 8 winner. Alongside him, the number 99 KTM, Hansen Schruff, only 17th in Pardubice. This has been a better day for him. Gate 3, the Italian youngster Kevin Coradetti on the number 27, failed to make an impression in his 4th outing, looking to bounce back here. Matthias Frey completes the front row, a consistent scorer throughout. Riders with a great deal more work to do come from the 2nd row, the 73 of Rodriguez, the 82 of Yell, the 41 of Jean-Pierre and the 7 of Moschini, who will be particularly keen to make it up into the top 2 places and keep his gold medal hopes alive. We're underway with the last chance qualifier. Only the top 2 will move through. It's a good start off gate 2 from Hansen Schruff, but he's bashed out of the way by Gianni Borgiotti in the run down to the bottom bend, and it's Borgiotti who begins to escape away. The race for 2nd position. Marcus Yell moving through well off the 2nd row of the grid, passes Matthias Frey and up into 4th position as Coradetti lunges for the inside on Schruff. Locks up though coming off the top bend, and it is Hansen Schruff, the Austrian for the moment at least, who holds on to 2nd place. Good racing going on up front. Gianni Borgiotti will be grateful to have a bit of breathing room behind him. Coradetti pushing as hard as he can. He's a little bit wide and a little bit wayward off the bottom turn. He's got so much speed, though, heading into the top bend, and he's certainly going to keep Hansen Schruff on his toes here. Coradetti not quite close enough to strike for the moment, at least. Then there's a bit of a gap to fourth position down. Marcus Yell in fourth place. Daniele Moschini, who started from the outside of the second row, has only made his way up into sixth place. So a lot of work still to do for Moschini as his fellow countryman Coradetti lunges for the inside again on Hansen Schruff, who left the door too wide open into the top bend, and Schruff is relegated down to third position. Coradetti gets his move done cleanly, and remember, it is the top two who will march on to the grand final. At the moment, it's an Italian 1-2 in this last chance qualifier. Disappointment for Schruff. He really gave that up perhaps a little bit too easily, and Coradetti is still charging hard. There could be further opportunities for position changes in the second half of this last chance qualifier. Borgiotti is your race leader. It's Coradetti in second. Schruff still close enough to strike. And if Coradetti makes a mistake here, still pushing hard at this stage of the race, then Schruff will not need a second invitation to find his way through. Coradetti probably needs to calm things down now. It doesn't really benefit him to too great an extent to pick off Borgiotti. And you saw, looking over his shoulder there into the top bend, Coradetti ahead of this, the final lap. He knows that he's got enough in hand over Schruff now to hold on to a qualification place. Not worth risking it all to chase down Borgiotti. It is going to be a third race victory of the afternoon for the number 181, the Husqvarna rider. Gianni Borgiotti rounds the final two turns and takes the checkered flag. He progresses to the grand final. Alongside him, Kevin Coradetti. Daniele Moschini remains down in sixth position. That's only good enough for ninth on the afternoon, and it rules him out of contention for the gold medal in 2020. Frustration for Moschini, who did so well to make the podium first time out in Pardubice. He won't replicate those exploits on home territory here today, but both Borgiotti and Coradetti have an opportunity to make an impression on the grand final in Boves this afternoon, and it will be no less than 4 Italian riders lining up in the decider. Borgiotti and Coradetti march on. Schruff, Gel, Frey, Moschini, Jean-Pierre and Rodriguez all miss out, scoring 12 down to 7 championship points. So Moschini is eliminated, but 5 of the top 6 from the final in Pardubice 3 weeks ago have made it through to contest the medal-winning positions in the 2020 FIM Flat Track World Championship. The standings based on the results of the Czech round, the same number of championship points on offer for the final here in Boves, which is emerging out onto track. Permutations are straightforward for our big two, Francesco Cecchini and Lasse Kurvinen. A win for Cecchini and he'll be crowned the inaugural champion. If Kurvinen wins with Cecchini second, we'll have a runoff, a head-to-head shootout for the title. None of the other riders here will figure in the context of the championship unless Cecchini and Kurvinen both fail to make the podium places, and that really would open up Pandora's box. The top seed Ferran Cardus has picked gate 2, championship favourites either side of him, and wildcard Bartolini on the outside of the front row. Koskinen, Borgiotti, Cano and Coradetti complete the lineup for the second final of the 2020 FIM Flat Track World Championship. The title decider gets underway. Good start off the outside gate of the front row from Elia Bartolini, but it's Cecchini who gets there first. Bartolini under pressure immediately from Ferran Cardus, who gets out of shape. Bartolini is bumped wide and Kurvinen recovers through into second place. Borgiotti also capitalises to move up into fourth position. Cardus is pushed down to fifth place. Cecchini has broken well clear in the early running, with bumping and boring from second position down on the bottom bend for the first time. So Kurvinen has work to do on the tail of the current championship leader. The top 2 positions as they were in Pardubice. The race for third position with Bartolini bottling up the pack as things stand, and the top 2 breaking clear. So it's Cecchini then as we head towards the end of lap number 2, who leads the way on the number 10 Zayeta. The KTM of Lasse Kurvinen in second place. Bartolini still in third. Fourth position with Borgiotti. Cardus, the top scorer during the heat stages, is going to have to work hard to get back in it here. He dives down the inside. He hits the side of Borgiotti and he goes down, and the red lights are on. The red lights are on and the red flag's immediately out as well. It's an early stoppage to the grand final, and the tension only mounts further here in Boves. An aggressive manoeuvre up the inside line from Ferran Cardus. He hits the side of Gianni Borgiotti, goes down himself. Bartolini also going down on that bottom bend, and we've got a restaging of the grand final here in Italy. Meeting referee Giuseppe Grandi has confirmed an 8-lap restart with a line out on the grid. So as we had already completed 2 full laps, there'll be no full restart, but the riders will line themselves up in the positions they held at the time of the stoppage. Well, Francesco Cecchini will feel most frustrated about this because he was well on his way to a race victory, and that would have given him the 2020 world title. This is a second opportunity for his rivals, and most notably Lasse Kurvinen, who did well on the bottom bend of the opening lap with all sorts of bumping and boring at the apex of the first turns to recover second position after what was an initially sluggish getaway. The rest of the grid will be made up with Bartolini, Borgiotti, Cardus, Cano, Coradetti and Koskinen. Cardus and Koskinen in particular then have lost out pretty badly compared to their original grid positions. Koskinen had qualified on the inside of the second row but dropped back swiftly in the early laps, while Cardus was a little too pugnacious on the bottom bend first time around and had dropped down to 5th. The Spaniard can actually count himself a little fortunate not to have been penalised by the referee because he really did hit Borgiotti pretty hard there, and it was that incident that triggered the red flags and, of course, the restart. Just waiting for the back 3 to settle in. Koskinen at the moment out of position. Cano and Coradetti due to start in front of him with a lot of work to do for the Finn. So we go again with Francesco Cecchini on pole. 25 points, remember, at the opening round in Pardubice for the Cecchini Racing Zayeta man. Second on the grid here, Lasse Kurvinen. Runner-up to Cecchini in the Czech Republic on his number 365 LK Racing Polaria KTM. Third on the grid, moving into position now, Elia Bartolini. The Di Traverso Racing Team Yamaha in the hands of the wildcard. Fourth, Gianni Borgiotti. Did a great job in the initial running to move into podium contention on the Off-Limits Racing Husqvarna. Cardus, Cano, Coradetti and Koskinen behind them. Take 2 on the title decider here in Boves. Underway with a good start for Cecchini. A wayward run to the first turn for Bartolini, but he holds station in third. Good getaway for Koskinen. He's already made up a place on Kevin Coradetti, who tries to bump him out of the way as they come through the bottom bend for the first time. Race on for second position here. Kurvinen has been dropped by Cecchini in the early running, and Bartolini is looking feisty in third position. Not as feisty as Cardus, who's already made up a place. He gets the better of Gianni Borgiotti, so 2 position changes on the opening lap. Koskinen up to 7th, Cardus up to 4th, and already looking menacing on the tail of Elia Bartolini. This is for a place on the podium here in Boves. Bartolini completely locked sideways and out of shape through the second chicane on lap number 2. Cardus with the inside run around the top bend, and Fran Cardus comes through into third position. That's 2 places gained now by the Grau Suzuki man, the number 6, the yellow machine. Certainly the man to watch. He's a little bit deep there on the bottom bend. Bartolini not quite close enough to recover third place, and Cardus has now broken clear. So as things stand, it's Cecchini who leads. This would be good enough for the world title if he can hold on to top spot. But Lasse Kurvinen over that last lap has certainly gained ground. There's not much to choose between the 2 main title contenders. Still Ferran Cardus in third position. He's leaving Elia Bartolini behind him, and he was very close to Lasse Kurvinen coming through the second chicane there. It's certainly Cardus who feels racy at this stage. He thunders down the inside of Kurvinen, moves the Finn out of the way. An aggressive manoeuvre from Cardus. We've seen plenty of aggression from the Spaniard throughout in this grand final. Firstly, in the initial running, he's certainly calmed it down in the restaging, and he's working his way through this field progressively. He's now up into second place. A quite brilliant ride from 5th at the line-out. Cardus now charging hard after the race leader, Cecchini. Cecchini doesn't need to win this race to win the title, but he has got to stay in front of Kurvinen. Kurvinen relegated down to third position. He's actually under pressure now just to hold on to a podium place because Bartolini is coming on hard. We're heading in towards the penultimate lap of this race. It's Cecchini who leads us. Cardus still in second. Hits a bump going into the top bend. He holds station in second place. The gap is coming down to the race leader. 2 laps to go. Cecchini on his way towards the world title. Makes a momentary mistake through the first chicane, and Cardus is now right on his tail, looking for victory here in Boves. 1.5 laps to go. Cecchini on his way towards the title. Cardus with a late manoeuvre into the top bend. Cardus comes through. Cecchini's down! Cecchini down! The world title could be on its way to Lasse Kurvinen. 400 metres to go here in Boves, and this race and this title has turned on its head. Cecchini remounts, but it's not going to be enough. Kurvinen is through for second position, and Lasse Kurvinen will round the top turn for the final time to be crowned the first FIM flat track world champion. Ferran Cardus takes the checkered flag and the second final win of this 2020 campaign. But it's Lasse Kurvinen who knows the enormity of what's just happened. He will have seen Cecchini go down, and he will have had the most nervous 400 metres of flat track racing in the history of this sport. Lasse Kurvinen holds on. He's been punching the air with delight. I'm sure he can hardly believe it, because for 6.5 laps there, it looked as though Francesco Cecchini would be the 2020 world champion. And it's Lasse Kurvinen, after drama at the head of the field, who inherits second place in the race and the 2020 title. Lasse Kurvinen will celebrate, his team rushing out from pit lane where they've been watching on to celebrate now with him. The first man onto the track and to offer congratulations to Lasse Kurvinen is Francesco Cecchini. Great sportsmanship being shown here by Cecchini. He will hardly believe it. In fact, he's shaking his head now as he walks away. Lasse Kurvinen is your world champion in 2020, and this FIM Flat Track World Championship has certainly sprung plenty of surprises, but 2 final laps of high drama. Ferran Cardus working his way through the field from 5th at the line out to take the checkered flag, but it was his penultimate lap move on Francesco Cecchini that will certainly set the tongues wagging here in Boves. Cardus coming through to win it. Cecchini going down, remounts to take 5th place, but second is good enough for Lasse Kurvinen to be confirmed world champion. Wow, just about time to get your breath back after a scintillating title decider here in Boves, and it's Ferran Cardus who makes it to the top step of the podium for the second and final round of this 2020 campaign. Time for the trophy presentation. First of all, to our third position finisher here today, the wildcard Elia Bartolini, certainly providing plenty of thrills with his unique and at times wayward riding style, but he keeps it on the island for a highly creditable third position, inheriting a step on the podium late on. Second place in the grand final for Lasse Kurvinen, eventually enough for him to seal the world crown in 2020. Your race winner, no doubt that is well deserved. Ferran Cardus, who topped the score charts with just 1 drop point to an opponent, 3 points clear of anyone else, and then fights his way through from 5th position at the line out to take a race victory. So Cardus, with 25 championship points scored here today, moves 3rd overall. The top 3 separated by just 4 points in the final reckoning, and Cecchini misses out on gold by just 3 points, with Lasse Kurvinen, your first ever FIM Flat Track World Champion.
Bueno, la verdad que muy contentos. Es mi primer año en este campeonato y empezamos en República Checa, donde yo veníamos confiados de que todo iría bien tal, y la verdad que es muy difícil. Los circuitos de España son muy diferentes aquí. El material es mucho más suelto y entonces nos penalizaron mucho nuestros settings y lo hemos arrastrado hasta aquí, y bueno, no hemos podido luchar por el primer puesto, pero bueno, lo hemos intentado.
Purtroppo me ne vado con l'amaro in bocca, perché è 6 anni che continuo a vincere e quest'anno mi sentivo molto forte e stavo dimostrando di essere molto forte, ma purtroppo per questo scontro che ho avuto con Ferran è stato decisivo, per cui perdessi la leadership. E purtroppo queste sono le gare, sbaglio o non sbaglio, è così, e quindi saremo molto più carichi e aggressivi il prossimo anno.
Kiitoksia kaikille, ketkä on auttanut mua tässä flat trackin parissa. Ari Nurmela ja Jukka-Pekka Purtilo ja Pekka Veräväinen. Te olette mahdollistanut mulle erittäin tärkeä jutun ja haluan kiittää teitä paljon. Ja sitten on myös, mä toivon, että tästä lajista tulee seuraava suomalaisen nuoren ponnahuslauta ihan Amerikkaan asti. Että mä lupaan auttaa kaveria tässä lajissa eteenpäin.
Well, Francesco Cecchini hadn't been beaten in FIM competition since 2016. Not one grand final he'd missed out on victory. 6 consecutive seasons as the FIM World Cup winner. But in the first season of the World Championship, he is denied on home territory here in Boves. A look at the World Championship podium with the FIM medals being handed out here today. We've got all of the key members of the FIM Track Racing Commission in attendance as Ferran Cardus takes bronze. Not the ideal start to the campaign for him, first time out in Pardubice. He was restricted to just 6th position, but he really has been the class of the field here today, and that's a fine way to end his debut campaign in the FIM flat track sphere. Remember, notably, went to America to ply his trade over the last few campaigns, and he's certainly brought back with him a bit of that American flair as he takes the victory in Boves here this afternoon and 3rd place in the World Championship. 2nd in the world in 2020. It's not the result that he would have been looking for. Francesco Cecchini, the winner of the opening round in Pardubice, cruelly denied on the penultimate lap here in Boves. He could have been passed by Cardus and still been world champion, but he was determined to hold on, went for the mid-track line on the top turn. He hadn't been that far off the groove, slipped, his front wheel slipped away from him, and so too did the world title in 2020. He's been gracious with world champion Lasse Kurvinen in defeat. He was the first man out on track to congratulate the number 365, who next season will run the number 1. Your world champion for 2020 is Lasse Kurvinen. Runner-up first time out in Pardubice. Runner-up here in Boves. He'll be world champion without winning a single round. I'm sure a round victory will come in the seasons to come, but his name will be inscribed on the record books forever. Lasse Kurvinen, the veteran Finn, runner-up to Francesco Cecchini in Pardubice, but the winner in the overall standings by a 3-point margin. Kurvinen is your first world champion.
Il finlandese, se non sbaglio, Lasse Kurvinen è il campione.
An emotional moment, no doubt, for Lasse Kurvinen, who's finally called up onto the stage to collect his FIM gold medal. 2 podium places out of 2, the only rider to make the podium in both grand finals this season. Well, it's not the result that our Italian hosts would have hoped for in the end, but a fine advertisement for FIM flat track with a thrilling decider and a quite incredible fairy tale story for Lasse Kurvinen, the 2020 FIM flat track world champion.
Un applauso a questi 3 fantastici interpreti. Vi ringrazio. Boves